Welcome back to the Republic Brothers Podcast. He's Matt, I'm Mike. Today's February 22nd, 2026, and this is episode 36. Before we get into the show, please hit the subscribe button and like the episode so you don't miss our next episode on Thursday. We have a packed episode today. The Supreme Court throws a wrench into the tariff debate, Prince Andrew gets arrested in the UK, and there's a shooting at Mar-a-Lago raising serious questions. Let's go.
Well, I'm having a good day. I don't know about you, Mike.
Yeah, today's a fantastic day.
Great day. A golden day. As we start the show, let's give a massive shout out to Team USA. As the U.S. wins gold in men's hockey for the first time since the Miracle on Ice 46 years ago. We take home the gold, and we get a great interview after the game by the hero. Jack Hughes becomes a legend after scoring the goal to win the game, then is asked about it, and through the blood and broken teeth, points out how great our country is and how proud he is to be an American. Quote, "This is all about our country right now. I love the USA. I love our teammates. It's unbelievable. The USA Hockey Brotherhood is so strong. We had so much support from ex-players, and I'm proud to be an American today." Great quote from him. Happy to hear other people saying it. He went on to praise his teammates, and that's what we want to see from those that represent us on the world stage. If we are such a bad country, why go and represent us? Be happy you come from the U.S. because it's the only country in the world where the people who hate it refuse to leave. It was so refreshing to hear some of those hockey players praise the United States and understand that, and give the nation the praise it deserves.
Yeah, it was definitely great to hear that, and there is nothing more hockey player than seeing an interview with a guy with his broken teeth.
Broken teeth, and he kept playing for his country.
Yep, and for anyone who didn't see it, the stick he took to the face that broke his teeth, it looked painful. And then to see him after the game with his teeth knocked out like that, it makes me grimace just thinking about it. It looked so painful. It looked so bad.
And while his teammates were drinking their beers normally, he was having to waterfall it because he couldn't put the bottle to his mouth. That's how painful it was, but he kept playing because his team needed him.
Yep, he scores the game winner.
Yep, love to see it. His brother praised the country a couple days ago, too. Great to see. I was curious if you saw Trump's post on X. The picture of a bald eagle standing on a Canadian goose was quite funny to me.
I did see that one. I also saw a few other like AI generated posts. I saw one that was like a sheet of ice. It had the Canadian logo at center ice. And then it was a bald eagle like stamping the U.S. flag into center ice. That was a cool one.
We love the Canadians, though, deep down. We had to troll them. This is their game, and they always remind us of that. So it's nice to beat them every once in a while. There are some people in Canada struggling right now, so be nice to them on all other topics of conversation. Head coach Mike Sullivan said Trump called him and expressed how proud he was of the group, and he congratulated them. The debate had really died down, but let's bring back the 51st state idea. We really only need Alberta. They are the conservatives in Canada that make the government function through their money, while the liberals in Ottawa run the country. Trades are a thing in sports, so maybe we trade the state of Washington for Alberta. If they won't do that, maybe we'll ship California off to Canada.
I like the sound of that trade. I know there are some Canadians that would be good with that trade too. I agree with you, though. It was great to see the men's team finally win the gold medal. It has been a long 46 years. I watched Miracle right before the Olympics started just to kind of get into the Olympic spirit. Me personally, I love the Olympics. Whether it's winter or summer, I love the Olympics. I love watching it. I know a lot of people don't share that sentiment, but me personally, I love watching the Olympics. It doesn't matter what sport it is, what event it is, I just love it. Now, as far as that gold medal game, the reactions from Paul Bissonnette and Ryan Whitney of the Spit and Chicklets podcast were priceless. You and I are both avid hockey fans, and we could go back and forth all night about this game. We'll save that for after the show. We already talked about it a little bit before. But it was a great performance by Team USA. And shout out to Canada for letting the bars start serving alcohol at 6 o'clock this morning to make it easier for them to drown their sorrows.
Yeah, it's easier if you can drown your sorrows before the game ends.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Our parents and grandparents had that moment of national unity through a sporting event. And we just had our generation's version of it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of felt the same way I imagine it felt in the 80s. Canada dominated that game. They dominated that game. In my opinion, I don't think the U.S. had any business winning that game. Connor Hellebuck stole the game from the Canadians, and they made one more play than Canada did. And it was just like against the Soviet Union. They were outmatched, but they found a way to win the game, and that's what matters. So we're winners, plain and simple.
It's exactly what the coach of the 1980 team said. We aren't looking for the best players. We're looking for the right players. Team USA built the team to beat Canada, and when they played them, they won the game. That's all that matters.
The best part for me was after the game, and it made me a little emotional watching it too, was seeing the players carrying around Johnny Gaudreau's jersey and seeing Johnny Gaudreau's family in the stands and then bringing his kids onto the ice for the picture. That was really nice to see.
Yeah, the bringing his kids on the ice part was big for me. Security at an Olympic event is very tight, and the fact that the team thought of it and the security acknowledged it and let it happen and let those kids on the ice for that moment was big. It was a very touching moment. Even the Canadian people are praising that.
Yeah, definitely. And Johnny Hockey, who formerly played in Calgary, that was huge. That was really nice to see. I was really happy to see them skating around with his jersey, and just that whole thing was just awesome.
They did it at previous events where they lost, and it was nice to see that they continued it now even though they won. It'd have been easy to retire it because you lost the last tournament, but it's nice to see that they kept his memory alive.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I can sit here and talk sports all day, but let's move on to the politics and the news in the world. Let's get into the shooting that took place at Mar-a-Lago. There are many things we don't know, but let's talk about what we do know. Austin Tucker Martin, a 21-year-old from North Carolina, who was reported missing by his family a few days before the incident, was identified by law enforcement as the individual who was shot by law enforcement. What we know is that at 1:30 a.m. local time, Martin entered the secure perimeter of Mar-a-Lago near the north gate of the property. He was seen armed with a shotgun and carrying a fuel can. At that point, he was confronted by the Secret Service and Palm Beach County sheriffs. Officers ordered him to drop his items. He set the fuel can down, but raised the gun into firing position, at which point law enforcement opened fire, and he passed away at the scene. The motives remain unknown, and investigators are working to determine why he was there with those things. Authorities said he was not known to law enforcement before the incident. There are many things that really don't make sense in this. I get the feeling we're going to find out he was there to take out Trump, despite the fact Trump wasn't even on the property. A reasonable person would know not to go somewhere that had armed security. It does not appear this was a reasonable person. It just doesn't make sense. But you and I are kind of reasonable, so we wouldn't understand it. You would think that if you wanted to take out Trump, you would make sure he was in the same state as you, but who knows? We will get more details before the next episode of this podcast, so we'll talk about this again. In my opinion, it's a good chance this was another attempt from the left on Trump's life. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see. He was a young man who clearly didn't have a good plan, whatever that plan was.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say this was political violence, right? I mean, at the very least, this was suicide by cop. At this point, I don't think there's anyone who's trying to take out the president of the United States that doesn't have some kind of political agenda. Like you said, we don't have all the details, but I am 100% certain that the history of mental illness reports will be coming out soon.
Yeah, you're spot on with that, I think. It's really tough, in my opinion, for you to go to an estate owned by the president and then claim you didn't know who he was.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the chaos in the U.S. Now there's also chaos in Mexico. Major drug lord Nemesio Osegura, known as El Mencho, was killed in a military operation on Sunday morning. That is a significant blow to organized crime in Mexico, and clashes between law enforcement and gang members ramped up as the day went on. Mexican troops in Jalisco targeted the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, who was a former police officer. Jalisco New Generation is a major supplier of fentanyl to the U.S. El Mencho, as he was dubbed, carried a $15 million bounty from the U.S. and was one of the top cartel leaders after El Chapo was arrested. The Mexican authorities said the operation was conducted in part of bilateral coordination and cooperation with the U.S., and U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau said in a post on X that the U.S., Mexico, and Latin America are better off. With all of that said, widespread criminal activity has been reported in the region. It is no surprise that the bad guys are responding in this way. The U.S. Embassy and consulates in Mexico advised all U.S. citizens in the region to shelter in place. They are right, but I would not advise anyone to travel to Mexico in the first place. The only reason most of the resorts in Mexico are safe is because they are in part at least owned by the cartels. It is good for business to avoid criminal activity in the areas of the resort where all the tourists are. Mexico has a surprisingly large part of the country run by the cartels, so I would never go there. The general population of Mexicans are great and hardworking people, but the government is not strong enough to prevent the cartels from doing what they want.
So how significant is El Mencho's death? What does this mean for Mexico and the U.S.?
Unfortunately, it's not as great of a win as we would want. There are a lot of cartels, and most of the country is controlled by them. The cartels merge and shift and collapse all the time. The total number of identifiable crime groups is somewhere around 100. It depends how you count them and how you merge them together. Some of them do work together out of convenience, despite differences in thinking. It's always shifting and will never be able to end it from this side of the border. The cartels simply operate in a way we don't, and in a way the government of Mexico can't. The cartels can kidnap and torture your family to scare you into submission, while the government simply can't do that in response. Fear is a tactic, and the cartels can use it when others can't.
Yeah, well, from the horror stories I've heard from people just going on vacation in Mexico, I know it's few and far between, but you hear a lot of stories about Mexico and the drug cartels and how they just pull people over on the side of the road and steal their money and all kinds of different stuff. So It would be pretty chaotic if the government was trying to return the favor to these cartels.
Yeah, and don't ever drive a truck in Mexico. If you went to Mexico in your truck, they would absolutely stop you and steal your truck because they love trucks because trucks can move things.
Yeah.
But let's move on. There is not much news around the Russia-Ukraine war, but we saw a massive drone and missile strike from Russia late on the night of the 21st. This is not new. It was just the latest attack on energy infrastructure. The attack damaged infrastructure, killed civilians, and caused large fires. Hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles were reportedly involved. We have talked about this before, and it will be a common theme until it's over. Russia is trying to break the will and spirit of the Ukrainian people. Putin will continue to shoot at infrastructure until the weather turns, then he will turn to the agriculture. It is an attempt to freeze them into submission, and then it will be an attempt to starve them into submission. The news from the negotiations is that there is no news. Russia still has not moved off its position, so we are not close to this conflict being resolved. And on an unrelated topic, the Olympics are over, so Iran should be nervous. Strikes can come anytime now. Go listen to our last podcast for why that is the case.
All right, well, we got Russia-Ukraine out of the way. Like you said, there wasn't a whole lot there. Let's break down what just happened with the tariffs. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled 6-3 that the broad global tariffs imposed under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act went beyond what that law allows. The court's reasoning was constitutional, not economic. They said Congress, not the president, holds the power to levy tariffs. This was not a ruling about whether tariffs are good or bad. It was about who gets to decide. Now, Matt, I'm torn on this topic. On one hand, I understand the appeal of tariffs. For decades, we have watched American manufacturing shrink. We've watched supply chains move overseas. We've become dependent on countries that don't exactly share our values. Tariffs feel like leverage. They feel like we're finally pushing back. And politically, they make sense to a lot of voters who feel like the free trade era didn't work for them. But on the other hand, tariffs can raise costs. Sometimes those costs get passed on to consumers. So I see both sides. Now, the administration is reportedly looking at using other statutes, like parts of the Trade Act of 1974, to keep some tariffs in place temporarily. So this is not the end of the tariff debate. It just moves it back into a different legal lane. I don't think tariffs are automatically good or automatically bad. I think targeted tariffs used strategically make sense, though. So, Matt, what do you think about this decision by the Supreme Court, and which side do you land on?
The free trade era made sense when we were half of the global economy. That is simply not reality anymore. Reality shows us that while we did not charge tariffs on imports from other countries, they did it to us. Yes, sometimes the cost of tariffs gets passed on to the consumer. And that's true in every nation. Other nations didn't care, and the reason for that was they were protecting certain industries inside their own country. You don't want things like steel manufacturing to be controlled by nations who are your adversary. The United Kingdom is getting a great dose of that right now. Germany got a great taste of that in 2022 when the adversary controlled all their energy. Now, Trump has immediately implemented a 15% tariff on all nations through another law, so I don't think this makes a whole lot of a difference. I don't love the decision by the Supreme Court, but I understand it. By the way, the Supreme Court basically said Trump could enforce a full embargo on a nation, meaning no trade at all. But tariffs are a no-go. I agree. Targeted tariffs make sense. We are the largest and most accessible market in the world, and cutting that off really will hurt other nations. We could use that to our advantage, and we should. We should help our friends and our allies. while using it to hurt countries like China.
What do you think the average person who thinks that tariffs are bad needs to understand about them?
Most people don't think about tariffs at all. That's a good approach, by the way, as what happens in your own house is far more important than what happens in the White House. Most people only think about them from what they hear from the media. The left think about them as raising prices, and the right think of them as protecting industry. When the president of the U.S. is a Democrat, that will flip. Tariffs are seen as a tool, and if your party is the one that has those tools, they're great. Even Europeans support tariffs in some situations, so it's really dependent on the situation.
All right, well, we just wanted to bring that up real quick. Obviously, this is not the end of the tariff discussion. Let's touch on one of the more startling headlines coming out of the UK. I believe this is now 2 episodes in a row where we're talking about the UK. For anyone who hasn't heard, Prince Andrew, now known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, was arrested on February 19th, 2026, his 66th birthday, might I add, on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This is officially tied to allegations that back when he was the UK's official trade envoy, he shared confidential government information with Jeffrey Epstein, information he had access to because of his official capacity. Andrew was held for around 12 hours, went through standard custody procedures, and was then later released that day under investigation without formal charges yet filed. This stems from newly released files tied to Epstein, and now British police are looking into whether he used his position improperly. Now, here's where I want to unpack this a bit. Let's be clear on a few points that many in the media are glossing over. 1, he has not actually been charged with a crime. He was arrested under investigation. Number 2, this is not about sexual allegations. That's been conflated online for years. The current charge is not a sex crime allegation. It is about alleged misuse of office and confidentiality. Now, my opinion on this whole thing, this Epstein file thing is getting very old. Nothing is happening, and we just want people to be held accountable. We had a guy comment on one of our last YouTube shorts a few days ago. It was the short from the conversation that we were having about Whoopi Goldberg being in the Epstein files. The guy commented, quote, "Must be a hell of a life arc when one day you find yourself doing everything you can to protect pedophiles," end quote. Now, I don't recall either one of us protecting anyone. We both have said that anyone involved should go to jail. But it's pretty clear to anyone who has a brain that there are people listed in the files who were not involved. Imagine the left's rage if they found out that Donald Trump was subpoenaed by Congress to testify and then he just didn't show up. But oh wait, Matt, the Clintons did that. Is anyone on the left condemning Hillary or Bill?
No, they cannot condemn their own people.
Is anyone on the left saying that they should be thrown in jail and that they're automatically guilty?
No, because it's their own party. You can't do that.
Exactly. Of course not. The commenter then said, quote, "Well, then we agree that all the files should be released." To which I responded, yeah, absolutely. Release all the files and let the chips fall. The problem is we keep saying release the files and let everyone get in trouble, but then when we say anything the left doesn't agree with, they call us pedophile protectors. As if the Democrats are completely innocent in all this. Now, I'm sure there are Republicans and Democrats who did bad things with Epstein, and they all deserve to pay the price.
Yeah, we never said Whoopi was involved. We literally put her in the same category as Trump, saying she was in it but not guilty. She was in it because she was barely connected to Epstein, but her comments after, and more so Joy Behar's comments, are what made the headlines. That's why we talked about it. I agreed with her. It was Joy Behar right after saying that Trump was in it 38,000 times, so he was guilty. That's why we talked about it.
Yeah, it was Joy Behar being a hypocrite.
Yes, saying Whoopi was in it, but she wasn't guilty just because she was in it. but then turning around and saying Trump was in it, so he was guilty.
Yeah.
It really is time to move on from this. It is a distraction for the left, though. If we aren't talking about Epstein, we could be sitting here talking about the fraud in Minnesota or California. That could really hurt some of their darlings like Ilhan Omar. So best we spend our time on the Epstein files, right?
Speaking of Ilhan Omar and Somalians, did you see that Somalian woman that says that they deserve reparations now because of this whole ICE thing in Minnesota and the fraud stuff?
Oh, boy. This crap again?
Yeah.
You know what? If the state of Minnesota or the city of Minneapolis wants to pay for it, fine. Don't let it come from federal funds. Let's cut federal funding off from them completely. They're a disaster.
They'll just find another way to fraud themselves into the money to pay for it.
Yeah, the problem is you're going to let them become president again, where they're going to control the federal government, and then they're going to print a crap load of money to bail themselves out, and that will hurt all of us. When you print a boatload of money, that raises inflation, and it hurts everybody.
Yep. They don't see it that way, unfortunately. It's just, the part that bothers me is that we post that short on YouTube without even knowing the full context of the clip. The guy comments on it thinking that we're defending Trump or that we're defending anyone. If anything, you were defending Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, but people are so tribal these days that they can't actually go and look up what your entire thought was. They heard your comments and they made assumptions based on that. They listened to 5 seconds and then assumed you were on the opposite side of them. So they had to be on the other side. They couldn't take you being someone on their side and disagreeing with them.
Yeah, the biggest problem we have today is this. There's too many people who are willing to argue on the internet, and it is completely pointless.
Well, you can argue on the internet because you're a keyboard warrior at that point. Nobody can actually confront you in person. It's a lot different when someone comes up to you in person and asks you about your opinions, because then they can identify you as the individual. You're kind of anonymous when you're online.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually the people that are commenting and saying stuff have no profile picture. They have no bio, no description of who they are. It's just like they're trying to remain as anonymous as possible because they don't want anyone to know who they actually are. They are trying to remain behind the keyboard so they can be a keyboard warrior.
Yeah, that's the right terminology for them. Most of these people would fold the instant you pushed back on them. You see it with liberals in their protests all the time. You go up to them, you can ask them what a woman is, and they can't answer. That's how weak their argument is.
Yeah, and it pretty much boils down to that in every single topic. All right, well, we are at the end of the show, Matt. It is time for our blind ranking segment. Same categories last episode, non-politicians that I would vote for president. Matt, go ahead and fire away. Give me the list.
It's non-politicians. Did I mention we won the gold medal? We're going with a sports theme today.
Okay, I like it.
First name up, Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. Well, I don't know where Tom Brady falls politically, but I'm going to guess just based on his relationship with Robert Kraft, the fact that he is a part owner in an NFL team, and he has a lot of money. I'm going to guess that he's on the right.
He also has a family, so fairly conservative in that way, too.
Yep. So I'm going to take a flyer here, and I'm going to put Tom Brady at number 1.
Number 1. Wow.
Number 1. I am going unconventional on this one. Usually I split the middle with the first guy. I'm going number 1 with Tom Brady.
That's a little bit of a surprise. I thought you'd like him, but I didn't know that you'd like him that much.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I still think Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Tom Brady. But this is a political question, so I'm going to put Tom Brady at 1.
All right, next up, our latest hero, Jack Hughes. He did just say how proud he was to be an American.
He did. He just said he was proud to be an American hockey player. I mean, I don't know what to do here. It's either 2 or 3, to be honest. I'm going to go 3. I'm going to go 3 for Jack Hughes.
Going number 3, okay.
Yep.
Next one has had his fair share of controversial moments. In my opinion, as a non-basketball fan, he is the greatest basketball player to ever pull on that USA jersey, Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant. That's a really tough one. I'm going to put KD at 4.
Going number 4, okay. Next up, you have your favorite athlete of all time, Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. I mean,
I've already written in your response, by the way.
I mean,
I know where you're going with that one.
Aaron, he has some weird quirks, okay? I'm not going to dispute that whatsoever. But as we saw with the whole COVID situation and where he landed in that whole thing, I think he has the right mindset, okay? And the fact that RFK Jr., there were rumors about Aaron Rodgers being his vice presidential pick if RFK Jr. would have made it that far.
That's a stunner.
It is.
But you only had 2 and 5 available, so I wrote in 2 for you.
Yeah, he's definitely going 2. He's definitely not going 5.
I think you'll be happy with that because the last name was LeBron James.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, definitely.
And when you look at how poorly his school has done, it's safe to say KD and Aaron Rodgers are probably better options.
Yeah, definitely. I have nothing nice to say about LeBron James, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. MJ's the GOAT. We don't even need to talk about that anymore.
LeBron is the second best basketball player ever. I will say that.
Second best basketball player.
Yes.
Definitely not the second best human.
He's not a bad human. I want to say that. We don't agree on a lot, and he's tried some things that were designed to help the people in his community that simply were wrong. You can look at his schools and look at the education rate from them, and the kids are pretty dumb, and they didn't get smarter when they went to school. But he tried. He tried to help. So I'm not going to sit here and say he's a bad human.
I think he's a social justice warrior because obviously he's got a ton of money, and anybody with that kind of money is not seriously a liberal. I am sure that he has a tax guy that makes sure that he pays the minimum amount of taxes that he can.
Theoretically, yes, but I also think he was very worried about what comes after basketball. Because if you're just worried about the money you made from basketball, you wouldn't be playing in California right now.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. Sports edition, you went Tom Brady 1, Aaron Rodgers 2, Jack Hughes 3, Kevin Durant 4, and LeBron James 5. Obviously, you don't like basketball and you love football.
Yep. Well, that's it for episode 36 of the Republic Brothers podcast. If you're still listening, you're exactly who this podcast is for. Before you click away, please hit the subscribe and follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. If you agree or disagree with anything we talked about, drop a comment and let us know. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.